welcome to quite a different video today. We are not playing any FIFA, we are talking about David Moyes. So you've probably, if you're a West Ham fan, seen quite a lot of content on this already, but I had a lot of requests from people on my channel, West Ham fans, and not to do a video on this, and I wanted to do it slightly differently because a lot of people are just voicing their own opinion, and obviously that's very important, and we're going to be doing that in that video, but I want to take a balanced approach to this. Not only so you guys can make your own decision, maybe if you don't really know the situation because you don't support West Ham, but also to kind of give you hints about why I came to the decision that I've come to as well. So I don't think we're going to waste any more time. I think we might as well just get into the video. So we're going to start by talking about why David Moyes could be the right person to carry on at West Ham. Maybe just improve this season, go on in the Conference League, obviously doing very well in that, I'll talk more about that later, maybe win some cups in future, and just the right person to keep West Ham moving in the right direction. So, I think the main bit of evidence you can give for David Moyes has got to be the way that he's finished the last two seasons. I mean, 6th and 7th, especially with the 6th place coming straight off avoiding relegation by a few points. A turnaround in such a short period of time is just very, very, very impressive. Obviously, following that up with a 7th place finish isn't as good, but it's still European football, and European football for West Ham 2 years in a row, I'd say, is quite the achievement. So, it's the first Manchester to do it in a long time. Obviously, we did under Bilic, but the first one was fair play, so I wouldn't say that really counts as much. So, that's the main thing for me, but on top of that, just what he's built at the club really shows what kind of manager he can be. When Pellegrini left, we didn't really have any scouts. We didn't really have a well-organised department of football. The backroom staff was a bit of a mess as well. He's brought in some very good people. We have lost Stuart Pearce, which is a real shame, because I think he's brilliant. But Kevin Nolan, Paul Nevin, well, I think we've got Mark Warburton in and out as well. Some really experienced people. Some people that have managed at other clubs willing to take up backroom staff roles. It just shows you the kind of man David Moyes is. It just shows you the kind of talent that Moyes can bring in, not just on the pitch, but behind the scenes as well. It's very impressive in my opinion. We could also look at the signings he's made over the last few seasons, not think about how these players are doing now, but how they did when they were brought in for the job that they were brought in to do. So I'm talking about Souček, brought in to keep us up, did a very good job at that. Kufal, very solid in his first season, and a very shrewd signing there. Both of those were under 20 million each. Jared Bowen, took him away from Crystal Palace, where he was going to go, brought him to us, scored some important goals, kept us in the Premier League, obviously kicked on, has got an England call-up since then as well. And the one that stands out for me, I don't know how David Moyes managed to do this, turning Craig Dawson into a great player, into a proper ball-playing centre-back. Not just defending it well, using his head, as you guys would probably be familiar with Craig Dawson doing. Spraying some lovely long passes, kind of linking the play together a lot better than you expect Craig Dawson to be doing. So, I mean, Moyes deserves a lot of credit for the way he shaped some players into being a lot better than maybe you'd expect them to be. Again, very clever signing, and initially on loan, only cost about 2 million. So, it's just signings like that. It shows you what David Moyes can do. And obviously, I've just talked about the way Dawson's been playing in Europe. As a team, the way we've been playing in Europe, we were unlucky, I'd say, last season. Semi-final, I mean, Frankfurt caught us cold. We could have won that game. It wasn't, they didn't just outclass us. It wasn't like, obviously, Cresswell got sent off. It changed the game in the second leg. We were in it until then and looking the better side in that game. It's just ifs and buts, but we did pretty well in Europe. Obviously, 6 out of 6 this time, albeit, I'd say, mainly Conference League will be against weaker opponents. These aren't really weaker than the Europa League group. I say Zagreb didn't turn up against us last year. The other two sides weren't actually that good, so it's not like it's not that much of a difference to last year, I don't think. I think we're just replicating, or technically bettering, because we've got 18 points, what we did last year. So we're going well in that. He takes the Cups very seriously as well, not just the Conference League. I'm recording this just for the Blackburn game in the Carabao. Whether we win or lose that, I'm sure we'll see a pretty strong side. In the FA Cup as well, whether we're playing, you saw it against, not as much against Kidderminster last year, but in the other games we played in the FA Cup, if it was against Championship League One sides, he would play quite a strong team. And also, just while we're talking about that, this is going to take time. This is a bit of transition for us. We have gone from finishing 6th and 7th with maybe a mid-table squad to bringing in some players the likes of Paquetá, Scamacca, Cornet, players that maybe play a little bit different to how we've been playing, different to just hitting on the counter-attack, especially Paquetá and Scamacca like the ball at their feet, like being a bit technical with it, so it could just be taking time to kind of change that. And if you bring in another manager, they're going to have different ideas, they're going to want different players in the squad, and every time you change manager, you are changing kind of the project. You're starting from the start again. You've got to have that one transfer window where you kind of bring all your own men in, and then you've got to build on top of that, so it takes time, and Moyes is already quite far along the line. I think this was maybe his vision for a few seasons' time, and he's got there a little bit early, so the project's actually doing better than it should, which is a massive plus for David Moyes. Another thing, that this is more of a defence rather than a Moyes in thing. He's lost a lot of key players this year. Signed De Gea, one of our main signings, 30 million, got injured against Rangers. Someone crunched him. I can't remember who it was. That hasn't played a minute in the Premier League. He's just coming back. He looks very good. It looks like he was a major part of what Moyes was planning for this season. As well as that, I mean, we've had one centre-back at points. We've had Ogbonna, Dawson, Gea, all out. We've had Zuma as our only fit centre-back, and Zuma's been limping around the pitch because he's got an injury himself and he's had to play through it just so we've got a centre-back. Tio Kehrer as well, he's been moved around a lot, but he's been injured at times too. We've lost Paqueta to injury. He's just come back. Cornet has been out for quite a while. Basically, most of our first team have had injury problems, and we haven't really seen our full team play. I'd say until, well, we didn't have Cornet, but until we played against Palace at the weekend, we hadn't really seen our first team play properly. But on top of that, obviously, you can go and look at the stats if you want. I'm not going to pull them up right now, but his win percentage since he come back, much better than some of the other managers we've had in the last years. That's not hard. We've had Big Sam who played for a point. We've had Avram Grant, and we've had Bilic, who played entertaining football, but it was wins and losses, wins and losses. So, you get consistency under Moyes is what I'm trying to say there more than anything else. You know you're going to be at least safe. I know it doesn't look like that at the moment, but we're only maybe a third, like 2/5 of the way into the season. So you don't know yet. You don't know. And another thing that David Moyes is really, really famed for, we haven't seen it as much in the last few games, but his organisation. When he came in, we were not organised whatsoever. And we've definitely become a lot more of a unit since then, whether it's the centre-backs, the full-backs, the CDMs up until this season, and that is individuals for me that have changed that, but Moyes also has a part to play. We'll talk about that later. We have been a very, very organised outfit, not just when we're defending, but also from set pieces. We've scored a few already this season, but you look at last season, season before, best set piece team in the league by far. Dawson, Souček, Rice, Antonio, so many people scoring headers. Obviously, Max can be in there now. It would be a bit of a poor thing to lose there, because if Moyes goes and we lose our backroom staff, we lose England's set piece coach, Paul Nevin, who's done a brilliant job. We could lose the likes of Kevin Nolan, obviously Mark Wolperton, who I spoke about earlier as well. Some really, really talented coaches. And it'd be a shame to see them go, because I do think they definitely have improved our squad. With all of that said, if you're a West Ham fan, or even if you've just watched us quite a bit recently, there's probably a few things that you're thinking that I haven't addressed yet. And of course, we have to get on with the drawbacks of David Moyes. We have to start talking about those as well, because we have to have a balanced video here. I'm not going to tell you my opinion yet, but I'm just going to go through this. It might be evident after this one, but I think one of the main ones for us is our form. We've won 5 of the last 22 games in the Premier League. If you look at our all-round stats, I think the Conference League and even the Europa League last season a bit cover that up. We've won 5 out of 22, and I'm pretty sure 2 of the teams that we've beaten have been relegated since then. It's 3 wins in 12 as well. Although we did finish 7th, we easily could have finished higher than that last year. Obviously, as a West Ham fan, I want to finish as high as possible, but at the same time, you've got to think realistically with the budget, with the players we've got. It is going to be difficult to compete with that top 6, although obviously you want the mentality that you're going to try and compete the most. I think we could have done that a little bit more if we kind of organised our players a little bit more. The rotation could have been a bit better. Moyes opted not to sign players as well last year, and I think that cost us a little bit, but yeah, that form from last season, even if you blame that, like, it's Moyes decided to play those players in games to set up how he did. And the way that's gone on to this season, it hasn't got any better, unfortunately. And along with that, I think has been the tactics from the last maybe 12, 22 games, whatever stats you want to go with. They're a bit inept. This is from Michael Antonio. He did say this on his podcast. It does with Callum Wilson. They just get told, keep it tight. Do not concede in the first half an hour. Obviously, they've got their attacking stuff. And if you ever watch us, you'll know we're much, much better in the second half. But you're just inviting on pressure for no reason. You saw it against Palace at the weekend. Benrahma, brilliant goal. We'll get on to talk about Benrahma later. But apart from that, a little bit of individual magic. We didn't really have much at all. We had Skamaka on the pitch. We had Paqueta on the pitch. We had Bowen on the pitch. We had basically our first 11 bar maybe 1 or 2 players. If we had every player fit, they'd all be playing. Those ones that were on the pitch. And we weren't attacking. We bought a Brazilian cam for 50 million and we're not attacking with him. We're turning him into a workhorse, which David Moyes does do a lot, and it works really well with certain players. The likes of Jared Bowen, that work that he does looks really adds to his game. It's kind of what's got him in the England squad. Fornals as well. I'm a little bit on the fence with Fornals. I feel like when you see him playing in his natural role as an attacking midfielder rather than out on the left, he's got a little bit less defensive work. He still gets stuck in, so does Lanzini and Paqueta. That's good to see, but he really is freed up a lot there. But Moyes, I think, he shackles players defensively quite a lot. I'm sure a lot of you will agree if you've been watching our games. It comes from the keeping it tight tactic that Michael Antonio was talking about. You're just throwing away half an hour, maybe even half the game, because by the time you kept it tight for half an hour, you're already on the back foot and you're just looking to get into half time. So you've thrown away 45 minutes. You could be putting pressure, especially at home, you could be putting pressure on the other team. And I just think it's a bit bizarre to see when you're playing against Crystal Palace, when we've been playing against Bournemouth and Fulham, we beat just because they were poor. Fulham were poor on the day. Bournemouth just didn't really offer anything. So those games weren't even that comfortable. We had a few VAR decisions against Fulham, and Bournemouth just really didn't offer anything. Like Solanke went off, I think that was their game plan. So those are the only games I think where he scored 2 or more goals at home, and they were more luck than judgment, is what I'd say. Skamaka, I think, like, he played really well, especially against Fulham, and he kind of dragged us through a little bit, but there wasn't really a cohesive tactic for the whole team. That's the worst thing when you look at a side and you don't really know what kind of football we're meant to be playing. Everton fans said this. They said Moyes will be really good. He could even get you into Europe in a few seasons. I remember talking about this with some Everton fans a while ago. I can't remember if it was on stream or on Twitter or whatever. But the football eventually would always get worse. It has got a lot worse, and if we were winning, it still wouldn't be brilliant, but it'd be a bit better. But the fact we're not winning and playing this football, it's just depressing, to be honest. It's not going to put bums on seats in the stadium, is it? And if you want to be a little bit more familiar with those tactics, it is normally a 4-2-3-1 that we employ. And we are completely stuck in that. Apart from in Europe, when we change it up a little bit, and we've gone 5 at the back at times. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But everyone knows what they're getting with us. It's a 4-2-3-1. And whether we're playing against Liverpool, whether we're playing against Crystal Palace like we did the weekend, we've seen the same kind of things. And even when it doesn't suit the players, we still play this. Like, we played Flynn Downs at Cam against Liverpool, and Flynn did a decent job. I'm a massive fan of Flynn Downs, but he shouldn't be playing there, should he? Like, he's not a Cam. He's a CM at best, a box-to-box player at best, probably a defensive midfielder. He likes sitting deep, kind of dictating the play, getting stuck in, similar to Declan Rice. Maybe not even as attacking as Declan Rice, maybe even sitting further back than him. But he's playing him further up, ahead of Souček and Rice, which doesn't really make sense when you've got the likes of Fornals, Lanzini, people that are for that role, just sitting in the middle of the midfield there ahead of the CDMs. Like, you've got players on the bench and you're not using them. It doesn't really make sense to me. As well as that, like, Fornals is the main one for me. He gets shoehorned into the left mid position. I talked about it earlier. He does well there, but Cornet, when he's fit, has played there a little bit, been very good. He needs to learn to stay on side, but he's definitely coming along quite well, Cornet. But on top of that as well, Benrahma, again, he's naturally more happy playing behind the striker, I'd say, but Benrahma on the left, it's more attacking, it gets you going, because Fornals, love the guy, he works so hard, really in love with the club, really likes what we're building and stuff like that, really engaged in it, and he's a great bloke, but at the end of the day, he doesn't fit the way that we want to play. If we want to play attacking football, Fornals is a little bit too slow for that if he's playing on the left. If he plays on the middle, we've seen it mainly in Conference League games, yes, I know it's against worse opposition, but we've seen it in the Premier League a bit as well. He's so much better playing behind the striker, and whether you need to change formation so you can have him and Paqueta there, or Fornals deeper, maybe with Rice and Downs or something like that, we just need to find a way to make it work, and Moyes needs to change his tactics, and he just won't do it. What is bizarre is the one time that we changed tactics, we went with a 5-back for a few games, while we had one centre-back fit. Again, I don't know if it's maybe having 2 full-backs either side that can play centre-back, those being Aaron Cresswell and Ben Johnson. Maybe he thought that would be a little bit more secure for us. Some people were saying that he wanted to play a 5-back and that was his kind of idea when Aguirre and a few other defenders came in. I don't personally agree with that, mainly because we didn't sign a right wing back. We signed Emerson at left wing back, but he's the only one we've got. Manny Longello went out on loan. I think he'd be brilliant there. If you're a West Ham fan or a Birmingham City fan, you'll know all about him. I think he's class. Right wing back, the only one we've got who really can play there is Harrison Ashby. When you look at Ben Johnson, he's either a centre back or a right back. I take him out of the options we've got to play right wing back at the moment. We've got Kufal, who is very much a right back, and then Kehrer, who's a centre back who can play right back. So I don't think that was intentional. We sold Fredericks, who I think would have done a brilliant job at right wing back. I would have held on to him, knowing that he'd probably get some Conference League games this year. But Moyes is in charge, and obviously Rob Newman as well, so you can't really complain about that. But I just find stuff like that a little bit strange. Like, the only time we change formation is when it really doesn't suit us. So I don't know what he's trying to do, but it's just, to put that bit in a nutshell, it's negative football. He's never tried playing 2 up front, even in training. Again, Antonio has said that on his podcast. Him and Skamaka have never tried playing together, not once, and it's just ridiculous because you've seen it. There's certain players, especially flair players, he cannot get the best out of them. And the example for me, you can talk about Paqueta, Skamaka. They haven't been there long enough for us to know, in my opinion, right? Sebastian Haller. Right, I know Pellegrini brought him in and not Moyes, But when you have a player with that much talent, you need to use him right. And he was playing Haller, who I know you might look at him, see his build, see the way he holds up the ball and go, he's a target, but he's not a target, man. If you look at him at Frankfurt, he was with Rebic and Jovic, playing in a three, interchanging, linking together very well. Him and Antonio played up front together once under Pellegrini. It's the only time it's happened. Haller scored, Antonio got the assist. Antonio then scored and it got ruled out, unluckily, by VAR. It's one of the ones, you know, where it accidentally deflects off a hand, like brushes something. I can't remember. It was either a silly hand or an offside. I can't remember, but it was very, very harsh. We saw in that one game how well they can play together against Southampton, who we struggled against quite often. And it never happened again. And Moyes is trying to keep that going down with Scamacca. Maybe, I know Scamacca played on his own quite a bit at Sassuolo, but he also had Raspadori with him quite often, whether that was behind in a Paqueta kind of role. He just doesn't get enough support, and you can see with Scamacca, he's not a proper target man. He wants to interfere, he wants to turn, he wants to be distributing it or turning, doing the skill, taking a shot. He wants to mix it up, and you can play him in quite a few ways, but I think just reducing him to a classic Andy Carroll style target man, it's just wasting his talent a bit, to be honest, and we've seen it before with Haller, and I don't want to see it happen again. But yeah, just summing that bit up, I tried to sum it up and I went off on a tangent. There's no plan B for us. We have one way we play. We make like substitutions only, and we're just kind of stuck playing the same way. But on top of that, we're stuck playing the same way. Often we are stuck playing with the same players, and that's my next bit. And that is Moyes picking his favourites. Very similar to Gareth Southgate, in my opinion. Not just in player style, but in the way he picks his squad. So, if you look at our lineup for most games, Fabianski will be in goal, whether he's played well or badly. I'm not really too fussed about that. Him and Areola just kind of change through the season. With the fans as well, it's kind of hard to pick one because they are. Areola's got better distribution, but for saves, they're up and down, both of them. If everyone's fit, we'd be looking at probably Kufau, Zuma, Aguirre and Cresswell. Then we'd be looking at Souček, Rice, and then maybe Paqueta ahead of them. And then we probably, unfortunately, I know Ben Rowan played at the weekend. Moyes does like Fornals, Bowen, and I'd say Scamacca, but he always gets Antonio on. But even if Antonio's not in full, Antonio will be his first attacking change. So even if he's not playing, Antonio still kind of falls into the favourites for me. But the ones in there for me that are seriously out of form, and it gets to the point with these players where you can't even blame them for being out of form. Moyes should just be giving them a rest, giving them time. Maybe just a mental break to try and get their heads back in the game. I don't like Souček especially. He's been the standout for me who's been very poor this year, and that's nothing against the bloke. Again, lovely bloke, works very, very hard, and I respect him, but he's just not been playing well. His passing's not been there at all. Like, we're trying to play passing football now a bit more. It breaks down every time it goes to Souček because he just can't do it, unfortunately. And as I said, if Moyes wants to play that way, he needs to put in Flynn Downs. He seems to have a bit of an agenda against Downs. Not as much as Ben Rama, and I'm going to talk about that later because that's ridiculous. Yeah, he just seems to not really like Flynn Downs that much and is just adamant on playing Souček when we've got Downs and Connor Coventry and maybe even playing Lanzini or Fornals deep instead of Souček, and he just sticks with Souček the whole time. Same on the left, Cresswell gets to play every game. Cresswell's very up and down, and I know the fan base is very split on Cresswell. I personally, as I said with Souček, works very hard. A lot of respect for the guy. He's been here a long time. And rather than his technical side, although he doesn't look to go forward very much, that might be Moyes telling him to do that. You don't know if that's Cresswell on his own, because Ben Rama makes some very good runs and he often doesn't use him. He's very negative, but also I think his pace is just gone. And again, that's not his fault, but Moyes should plan for that. When we've played against, I think Wolves just chucked Dama Traore on him. Obviously Salah against Liverpool. There needs to be a contingency there to maybe put in Emerson for those games or play Ben Johnson on the wrong side or just something else that would work a bit better, because Cresswell's getting exposed there because Moyes is adamant on picking him, and half the time it's not really his fault. If he's not fast enough, he's not fast enough. There's nothing he can do about that. And the other one for me, brilliant last season, but he's out of form at the moment, and maybe giving him a rest could do good for him, and that's Jarrod Bowen. He gets picked every single game. He just works him and works him and works him. He did it last year as well. Bowen never gets a rest, and he could definitely benefit from one. Even if he was in good form, resting him in some games would probably be good for him. But he gets played every game regardless of form. He's not really got much direction at the moment, as with the other two. You can't fault his work. He does work very hard, but apart from that, he's not really doing too well at the moment. Not really any creativity from him. He's not taking those shots instinctively like he did last year. Scored a good goal in the Conference League, but I think that's about it for him. And I want these players back in form. Obviously, I really, really want them to do well, and it's just maybe resting them, giving them a little bit of an opportunity to kind of get their heads back in it, give themselves a mental break as well as the physical one could get them playing a bit better, and that's not going to happen if Moyes persists on picking the same 11 every single week. The last one for me, it's one I've already spoken about very briefly. I find this one absolutely absurd. And that is the Benrahma agenda. He has a bit of an agenda with Downs as well. He brought Downs in, and before he'd even played a minute, was saying he wasn't good enough, whatever. And you can't do that as a manager. You've got to back your players, even if you didn't want them. And the manager brought the owner brought them in, whatever. You've got to back your players. Okay. The whole point of being a manager is not just picking the tactics up, but you manage the people as well. And he was very good at that when he came in, Moyes. But there's something about some of the players at the moment. He's taken a dislike to them, which you cannot do in anything. You can't just openly dislike someone for no reason. It all came to a head with the substitution when Lanzini came on for Benrahma. Benrahma had been our best player by far in that game. The crowd voiced their disapproval, massive boos, chants for Benrahma. Cheers for Lanzini when he come on. It's nothing against Lanzini. It's not his fault he's been put in that situation. But Benrahma scored our goal out of nothing. He was the only one beating players, kind of dragging us forward himself, getting Scamacca involved as well. Obviously, Scamacca went off at half-time for Antonio. Again, I'm presuming he's injured. If not, that's an absolutely ridiculous choice to make. Why would you bring on someone who's not actually a striker for a striker you've paid £35 million for? I don't know. But yeah, Benrahma, with that, subbing him off and then saying in the press conference, he got a bit rude in the press conference, a bit condescending, Moyes. And that's kind of when you know a manager's losing the plot. Mourinho does it over and over again, saying, there's a lot of experts out there, they all think they know what they're talking about, they don't, whatever. Kind of going against the fans a little bit, which I know he's got a job to do and he's the expert and all that, but you shouldn't really be doing that. And then saying that Benrahma scored the goal, but he didn't play well. This guy needs confidence. He's there at the moment, but you've seen in the past, Benrahma is a player that needs confidence. He needs help from the manager, and the manager's really not giving it to him. I wouldn't blame Benrahma if he wanted to leave. The fans love him. I think he's a brilliant player, lovely skill player. He's exactly what we like seeing at West Ham, but Moyes isn't right for him, in my opinion, at all. And at the end of the day, Moyes, although maybe Moyes didn't buy him, Moyes' staff, Moyes' board, during Moyes' reign, he's been bought. So Moyes has got to do the best with him. Like Allardyce had a lot of players he didn't want to come in that did, but he just tried his best with them. That's what you've got to do. It's not that guy's fault that obviously he would have wanted to come to West Ham. He probably would have been told Moyes wanted him. You don't know, but it's not just that. It's just attacks for no reason. Like they asked him about Naya Faguer's English. So, nothing to do with Benrahma. They went, David, how is Naya Faguer's English? And I'm paraphrasing here, but I've seen the interview. And he went, yeah, it's really good, really proud of him. Like, he communicates well with the lads. Same with Cornet, same with this guy, same with this guy. Much better than when Saeed came in. What Saeed Benrahma got to do with any of that? You're just taking a dig at him for no reason. And it happens far too often. Benrahma, in brilliant form, doesn't get played. And I'm not saying, I know I said it earlier with Bowen, you need to give a player a rest every now and again, but it's not just giving him a rest. He won't play for like 3 weeks after being our man of the match. It's ridiculous. There is some kind of agenda there. I don't know what's going on, but someone needs to get to the bottom of it. If any of you guys have any ideas, please let me know, because this just absolutely baffles me. And that is those last two are the kind of main reasons that a lot of people could be Moyes out. And I'm kind of leaning towards that side now. I think he's got 2 games to save his job, to be honest, against Blackburn and against Leicester. And if we go out the Carabao Cup, that's a little bit embarrassing. Blackburn are doing well, no disrespect to them, but they are a championship side. We should be beating them. And then we've got to beat Leicester. They've been up and down in form, but we need to win at home. We need to attack as well. We don't just need to win. I don't want to defend, win 1-0. If we win 1-0 but have chances to attack, free-flowing football, brilliant. If we sit behind the ball, it shows you nothing's going to change. So Moyes needs to mix it up, or I think, unfortunately, he's got to go. With the World Cup coming up, we've got a brilliant chance to change manager. And the main question that I'm sure is going to be in a lot of you guys' minds now is, who do we bring in? So that's going to be our next topic. So I saw a little list, actually, of managers that are free agents at the moment, and we've got some good names on here. We've got Thomas Tuchel, we've got Rafa Benitez, we have got Joachim Low, we've got Pochettino, we've got Deitch, we have got Scott Parker, Stevie G, Bruno Lage, Andre Villas-Boas, Marcelo Bielsa are the names that have been circulating around quite a lot. And I've kind of rated them all on how much I want them. But out of these ones here, my pick would certainly be Thomas Tuchel. I know he plays maybe slightly defensive football, but he's known as a defensive manager, but he's got a lot of goals with his Chelsea team. They didn't just win games 1-0. They were winning a lot of games 2 or 3-0. Obviously, has a good record in the Champions League, in Europe as well. I'm sure Conference League he'd be able to guide us to it. Did better than Pochettino, who's also on this list at PSG. I know it's not difficult, but still did well there. And he'd be my biggest pick. He wants to stay in London as well. He sent another London club down. So he's always going to be in the mix, Thomas Tuchel. It would be a long shot appointment, in my opinion, but you've got to aim high and not go with just the cheapest option like we have in the past. Again, going down the list, Rafa Benitez, if it was after his time at Newcastle, I would have taken him, but not now. He absolutely, I don't know if he was sabotaging Everton on purpose. It got to that point. I wouldn't take him now, not in good form. Joachim Low, I don't really know enough about him. Not a bad manager. Obviously, he did win the World Cup, but at the same time, I don't think he's managed in the Premier League, and that's a big thing here because it's very different to international football. But Joachim Low, I'll kind of put him in a maybe category, like a 5 out of 10 appointment. It would be a surprising one because of his profile, but he's not bad. He's not bad. Pochettino is a name we're seeing everywhere at the moment, though. I'd take him, not over Tuchel, but I would take him. Obviously did very well at Southampton. Tottenham plays good attacking football. He might leak a few goals, but our defence isn't too bad at the moment. I don't think we need someone. I don't think we need a Dyche. I put Dyche at the bottom of the list because he'll come in and organise you. We're already organised. We're already playing Dyche ball without Sean Dyche. We just don't need him. We need our attack ignited, and I think the main men to do that, apart from obviously Tuchel, who builds from the defence into attack, transitions nicely, all of that, are either Pochettino or Bielsa. Bielsa ball, we saw it at Leeds, it's chaos. It's funny, but it's entertaining to watch, and that's what we want right now, because the football, win or lose, it's got to the Allardyce point where it's just depressing, actually. Even if you win 1-0, you don't come back, you don't think, oh, I'm really looking forward to next week, can't wait to see more of that. You're just like, oh, we've got to come back next week. Might win, might lose, but it's going to be boring either way, and I really don't like that. Obviously, I want to win trophies, I want to win games, but I like doing it the right way in an ideal world. I know you can't always do that, you have to win ugly sometimes, but it's just sometimes trying to be a bit more expansive and changing it up. I think Bielsa or Pochettino would do that well, not as well as Tuchel, but I think they'd be on there. Gerrard, Large, I'm going to rule him out straight away. Gerrard is an awful manager, in my opinion. I don't know what you guys think. Bruno Large, again, he had a lot of injuries at Wolves, but he did lose the plot a little bit, similar to Moyes. Don't really want him. Villas-Boas, don't know what he's been up to the last few years. I wouldn't touch him, to be honest. So that leaves us with Scotty Parker, who I think is quite a realistic option. Massive connections to West Ham, won't be too expensive. He's who I actually think the board might go for if they... I hope they go for Tuchel, Poch, one of those. If they don't, I actually think they might go for Scott Parker. And if you guys don't know him, obviously, he's played for... Probably most famous, actually, for his time at West Ham. He's played for Charlton, he's played for Spurs as well. But yeah, was one of our best players for a few years. A brilliant leader. He wasn't the captain, but he basically took up the captain's role. It shows you his... shows you the way that he can manage there really good. He was okay at Fulham, didn't do too well when they came up. And then Bournemouth started okay, but he went due to arguments with him, I think, with a board rather than actually for bad results. So Scott Parker wouldn't be an awful appointment, but I think we could do. I think we do need to aim higher than that, but I think that'd be kind of what the board go for. Wouldn't be pleased or upset with that. I think that's about 4 or 5 out of 10 appointments. So Tuchel's my number 1, and then I'd say my 2 will probably be Bielsa, and 3 be Pochettino, because a lot of people talk about Bielsa's English and stuff like that. He does speak English, he just doesn't speak it to the media, which is fair enough. The English media are idiots. And then if we're talking about not free agents as well, I don't think too many people are going to move. I've heard Mancini thrown around a little bit. That would be an amazing appointment, okay? But I don't think that's going to happen because he's kind of got to set his reputation right with Italy and lead them maybe into next year, into the World Cup after that and so on. But the reason I know he's quite fond of West Ham. Skamaka asked him about going to West Ham and he recommended it over some other clubs. So thank you for that, by the way, Mancini. But be amazing if we get him in, but I don't see that happening. I just wanted to address that one because I've seen it swirling around quite a lot. And then we've got like the likes of Brendan Rodgers, a few of those. Don't want to see them come in. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, someone mentioned on stream. No way, please. He is literally a PE teacher. If we could nick a manager off another club, I would probably want Thomas Frank, but I don't think he'd leave Brentford. He's got a very stable, very good project going on there. He's got all the players he wants, everything like that. So I don't see that happening. He'd probably be one of my ideal ones, but I would never see that happening. Those are our main options to kind of replace David Moyes. I think like who you can replace him with is a massive part of whether you're Moyes in or Moyes out. Because the first question is, if you're Moyes out, who are we going to bring in then? That's what everyone says on Twitter, on Sky Sports, whatever. Even when you're talking to people in the stadium, who do we bring in then? And the options are here. I wouldn't be against. David Moyes doesn't really deserve it, I'll be honest. But even maybe assessing who's interested in the job now. Maybe not bringing him in, but knowing who's interested before the World Cup. Because the World Cup is a massive opportunity to change it up. I know the board have said they're completely behind the manager, but I think this is a massive opportunity to change it up. And that might change should we lose at least one of the next 2 games. One in the Carabao, one in the Premier League, or especially both. Yeah, like I'm going to the game tonight. I'm not convinced we're going to beat Blackburn, and that is worrying. Last season would have been professional performance, we'll go through, we'll smash them. and Blackburn are doing well. Obviously, that's part of it, but I shouldn't be that worried about tonight, really. I shouldn't, especially because it pens after 90 minutes and we will sit back for 45. But yeah, that's my opinion. I'm leaning towards Moyes out now for the first time after the Palace game. I was backing him. Sale turn it around. Just needs to get the players playing, but it's first time. I don't think we've really got any direction anymore. So yeah, I will be leaning towards Moyes out, unfortunately, and it is a shame to say that after everything he's done, but a manager can only take you so far. We've seen it many, many times. They can bring a club up. Moyes even did it at Everton, but you can't make that next step afterwards. And yeah, that's going to be all from me, guys. I'd love to hear your opinions for this down below, West Ham or not, whether it's on being Moyes in, being Moyes out, the tactics, the alternate managers, any of that. Just let me know, okay? I'd love to hear from you. And I might do a video responding to it, picking some of your comments out. Just try and please be respectful one to me and to each other, because I know this will get quite heated and that'd be quite nice. But yeah, I will see you all later. Thank you very much for watching. A very different type of video from me, and I will see you soon with some World Cup predictions. Goodbye.